Hello, crypto boys and ghouls, and welcome back to the channel, Tales from the Cryptmancer, where we feature content on play and earn games on the blockchain, such as Splinterlands. And in today's video, I wanted to follow up on a video that had a lot of very strong reactions to it, and that was my video discussing my land strategy, my personal land strategy as it pertained to research tokens. And I was surprised by a lot of the comments that I got. So I wanted to have this video as a further discussion and follow up on that previous video. I'll link it in the video description below if you're curious what video I'm talking about. But it was a video where I was discussing my personal land strategy on day one as it pertained to research tokens and some of the reasoning behind my decision. I wanted to revisit that video and share with you more specific data on my personal spreadsheets that might give you some more insights. Now, I want to put a disclaimer here on this video because the last video seemed to be a pretty hot topic of conversation. Number one, this is my personal land strategy. Please don't make it your land strategy. If you want to take the data, take the points, and form your own strategy, great. I'm not here to tell you what to do with your land, with your assets, with anything like that. I'm just sharing insights into what my thoughts are and how I'm approaching land on day number one. And that's the second point I want to make. This is my strategy for day one when land 1.5 is launched. And I'm going to show you some of the data specifically, which makes my decision here pretty easy. But again, I'm not saying this is my strategy on day 2, day 30, day 60, day 180. No, this is my strategy to start land for me to maximize my investments in my assets, my cards, my DEC, etc. Again, do what you want to do with your own assets and your own strategy. Your cards look different than mine, probably. Your land looks different than mine. Please don't take it that I'm saying this is the rule of the land and this is the way it should be. No, this is my personal opinion. That being said, research tokens will be valuable in Splinterlands, period. The game is called Secrets of Pretoria, so you're going to want to have, more than likely, if you participate in land, some research tokens at some point in time. I will farm research tokens, just not on day one, and as we go into some of the data in this video, you'll see my reasons why. I think it's worth noting as well that my approach to land 1.5 may be different than yours, and that's okay. I will just tell you that my approach to land 1.5 specifically is for me to maximize my assets that I have allocated to land to ensure that it produces and grows my assets within the Splinterlands ecosystem. As such, my decisions for land are based on maximizing my ability to grow my assets. It's because personally, land is, well, it's the biggest investment that I put into Splinterlands. And as such, because I made a conscious choice to put DEC, cards, land, etc., into this process, I want to maximize its ability to generate more assets for me in the ecosystem. Now, that's just my approach, and I'm going to share data here in this video that talks about what I'm doing with that approach and how I'm going about it. Now, if that's not your plan for land, if that's not your strategy, that's okay. Your approach, however you want to play land, is perfectly fine, and this data may or may not be relevant to your strategy. It's still good to be aware of it because it won't tell you possibly how others might be thinking. The beauty of a game that has choices and has many different paths and ways to play the game is that everyone can play it however they choose. So that being said, play it however you like. I'm not saying anything negative about land. I'm very excited for land to be here, and I'm very excited to play land. Now, I may approach land differently than you, and that's okay. So, Now that those disclaimers are out of the way, let me go into some of the data and explain further on my thought process for what I'm doing with land personally on day one. So here we have just a simplified spreadsheet here of my specific land data. Now, for me, I own 2 tracts of land, which is 200 plots. And I made a significant investment in cards and DEC to be able to work my land as much as I can on day one. In fact, I'm going to be able to bring online 162 plots fully on day one out of my 200. That's roughly 81% of the land that I owned. Now, it's not 100%, but it's a decent amount. That being said, I don't have any more budget for land at this point in time. I'm not looking to put any more money into the land process at this point in time. And I want land for me to be a self-sustaining engine that basically makes, essentially assets and income that I can choose to reinvest in land to bring 100% of my land online, not just 81%. So now for me, with that being said, you can see here in the spreadsheet, I have 38 plots of land out of my 200 that are not going to be worked on day one. And the simple reason for that is 1, I don't have enough cards, 2, I don't have enough DEC, and 3, I don't have enough time crystals. So what does that tell you? It tells you for my other 162 plots, I have enough DEC, I have enough cards, and I have enough time crystals to start producing day one within the first hour of land releasing, which is great. So now you're probably saying, well, Tails, why do you have all these common magical plots? In fact, I have 21 here that are listed that I'm not going to be working. So 21 of my 38 land plots are not going to be worked on day one. Well, that's a great question. The reason for that really comes down to column H here, which is the production points needed to clear this common plot of land is 4.5 million for these magical lands in land 1.5. Now, again, if you watch my previous video, I discussed, my thoughts around research tokens, meaning I can't cash them in, I can't use them for anything of value on day 1 or day 30 or day 60. And all things being equal, you can't produce SPS and grain and research. You have to make a choice as a player, and this is why there's strategy as part of the game. You can't produce all 3 of those resources on a single plot of land at the same pace. You have to choose. I am choosing, making a conscious choice for me on day 1 of land to not bring online and farm my magical common plots of land. And again, the reason for that is because it takes 4.5 million production points to clear. That's a very important fact because you can see here a magical common plot of land, 4.5 million production points to clear, versus a natural common plot of land, which is 1.5 million production points to clear. Both will produce the same amount of SPS or grain on day 1 of land launching. The difference is one takes 3 times the amount of either grain to clear or time crystals to clear. That's a significant cost. Again, all things being equal, the number of cards or DEC, whether I'm on a magical land or a natural land, will be the same, but it's 3 times the cost to clear it to get it to producing right away. That's very important because, again, if I'm not going to be cashing in research tokens on day 1, if something costs 3 times as much, I'm probably going to default to using the cheaper, faster option. So again, to clear and start working a common magical plot of land, that's going to require 450 time crystals, which is column I here, or I've illustrated an example here if I put 5 rare, fully maxed Chaos Legion reward cards on land, just to be an illustrative example here, it would cost me 50,000 DEC, which is $41, and would cost me in current market prices $17.25 for those cards. So right there, the cost of the DEC and the cards to get this land workable on day one, not even clear, just workable, is $58.25. Now, if I wanted to clear the land instantly for this particular plot of magical common land, it would be another $36.90, or I could wait 34 days and pay $36.90 in grain costs and then clear the land for it to produce research tokens. Now, you can see the costs here are quite high. So what I've chosen to do is to forego research tokens on day one from these common magical plots, because I believe my resources in time crystal cost as well as card cost and DEC cost is better spent on farming and harvesting grain and SPS. The reason for that is because if I have grain producing food for my workers that are mining SPS, I can then take that SPS and then over time clear these magical plots as well as my remaining common plots here down below. Again, the cost here is substantial. If we do the math here, I'll pull it up on a calculator to give you the total cost. If we do the math, the resources that it would require for me to bring on one common plot of magical land is $36.90 in time crystal cost, right? And then it is in this example, again, you can go cheaper or you can go more expensive. It's an additional $17.25 for the example of Chaos Legion reward rares and $41 in DEC. So it's $95.15 to bring online a magical common plot of land. Personally, I feel that $95.15 of assets is better used on other plots that can farm SPS and or grain on day one. Now again, this $95.15 cost does not also include the plot of land itself. So therein is basically the equation that I'm doing on day one is I want to make a self-sustaining land tract here, or in this case, 2 tracks, where it is producing enough grain to feed the SPS workers and enough SPS for me to bring on 100% of my land online. Now that'll take some time because again, I've already mentioned that I'm not looking to put any more money into DEC card assets or time crystals. So I'll need my land to basically help bring on the other 19% online. And that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Now again, if you have, let's say, 2 plots of land that you own, one's a common natural land and one's a magical rare land, as an example, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to want to bring both of those online day one with land 1.5, and you probably have a budget for your cards and your DEC. My example here is, all things considered, all in, this is my calculated equation based on the land that I own, the assets that I own, and how much my budget is for land. This is the equation that I discussed in my last video, and it's simply saying that at the end of the day, I will bring these magical plots online, funded by the land investments I've already made. And yes, it might take me, let's say, a couple weeks to come online with these magical plots to farm research tokens. And guess what? That's okay, because as Aggie has mentioned, the Secrets of Pretoria is a long-term game. It is not a long-term game. It is not something that's going to end on the first day of land being released. It is not going to end on the first month. It's probably not going to end in the first 6 months. It is something that is a year, maybe longer, to get to some sort of value here for the Secrets of Pretoria and research tokens. Now, if I farm research tokens on day 1 or day 30, is that going to be a big deal in the grand scheme of things? My personal opinion is it's not. If I'm producing, for example, you can see here the calculation, right? The secrets production points per day on a common magical piece of land with all max level Chaos Legion rare reward cards is 277,200 production points per day per plot of land. Now, if I bring these magical lands on, let's say it takes me a month, or maybe it takes me 2 months, or whatever time it takes me to bring them online, will I be behind in someone that started with Chaos Legion rares on day 1? Yes. But will I be behind in so much of a fashion that it negates the benefits or the gates of research tokens a year from now or 6 months from now? No, because as a percentage of production points, the first 30 days or so really isn't important. Yes, in the grand scheme of things, the other person would have more. But what does more actually mean? If I'm not going for a leaderboard spot for a title, if I'm just trying to clear the gates of research tokens, I have 21 common magical plots of land. I'm pretty comfortable speaking that once I get those online, that I'll be able to farm research tokens just fine and be a-okay when it comes to clearing any gates presented by the Secrets of Pretoria 6 months, a year, or 2 years later down the road. So, to summarize here, this is my personal land strategy. I am not saying research tokens are bad. I'm not saying research tokens should not be farmed. I am saying from a priority perspective, from my personal land strategy, that I will not be farming magical plots and research tokens on day 1 because of the reasons I've discussed here in this video and shown you from a cost analysis perspective. Again, your mileage may vary. Do your own research. But I hope showing you some of this data, for example, the time crystal cost or the days required to clear these types of land, as well as the general costs of land in general, are quite interesting data points that I'm not sure anyone has probably all done all the data, the research, and the analysis. If you haven't done this, if you haven't mapped your cards to your plots of land, looked at, for example, things like the grain generated per day, per hour, the grain consumed per hour, how much it will cost you for workers in addition to this $95 and change to bring on a common magical plot, how much is it going to cost you in grain on a daily basis to pay to farm research tokens? I would say if you haven't done this analysis, if you haven't created your spreadsheet, if you haven't gone through and read and reread again the SPS and the Secrets of Pretoria Land 1.5 white paper, I would definitely recommend you do that. Get familiar with it because land is going to be here very, very soon. And if you want to maximize your start right out of the gate to get the best start that you can with your situation with cards and land and DEC, definitely put in the time now, do the research, and have a land strategy. Until next time, keep stacking those stats.
That's entertainment.